The cabin I rented was supposed to be completely isolated. No neighbors, no nearby houses. But the first night I stayed there, I heard someone walking upstairs. The problem was, there was no upstairs. I booked the place on a random Thursday night after a long week at work. I just needed a break. No traffic, no noise, no people. The listing described it as completely private, surrounded by forest. There were a few photos, wooden cabin, small porch, trees in every direction. Nothing unusual. It looked like the kind of place where nothing ever happens, which is exactly what I wanted. The drive there took about 3 hours. The last 40 minutes were on a narrow gravel road that barely looked used. No street signs, no houses, just trees on both sides and the occasional bend where you couldn't see more than a few feet ahead. At some point, my phone lost signal completely. I remember checking it twice, just to be sure. Nothing. No bars. I didn't think much of it at the time. I got there just before sunset. The cabin looked exactly like the photos. Single story. Weathered wood. There was a short path leading to the front door and a clearing just big enough to park my car. Beyond that, just trees. Every direction. At first, everything felt calm. Quiet in a good way. The kind of silence you don't get in the city. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and dropped my bag near the couch. The place smelled slightly musty, like it hadn't been aired out in a while, but nothing too bad. I walked through each room just to get familiar with the layout. Living room, small kitchen, one bedroom, bathroom at the end of a short hallway. That was it. No second floor, no attic ladder, just a low ceiling running across the entire cabin. That's when I noticed something small. The chair at the kitchen table was slightly pulled out. Not all the way, just enough to look used. At first, I thought maybe the cleaner forgot to push it in. Didn't think much of it. Then I saw a mug in the sink. It had a faint ring of dried coffee inside. That didn't sit right with me. Usually, places like this are cleaned before new guests arrive. But again, I brushed it off. Maybe it was just overlooked. Later, I went outside to grab something from my car. That's when I noticed the footprints. Behind the cabin, near the tree line. They weren't super clear, but you could see the shape of shoes pressed into the dirt, leading toward the back wall. Not away from it. I stood there for a second just looking at them. At first I thought, maybe they were mine. But they weren't. Different size. Different pattern. That's when something felt slightly off. Not enough to panic. Just enough to notice. I went back inside and locked the door. Just in case. That night, I made something quick to eat and sat on the couch scrolling through my phone, even though there was no signal. It was quiet. Really quiet. No cars. No voices. Just the occasional sound of wind moving through the trees outside. Around midnight, I turned off the lights and headed to bed. That's when something strange happened. As soon as I laid down, I heard it. A creaking sound. Slow. Like someone shifting their weight on wood. I sat up immediately, listening. It came from above me. At first, I thought it might be the roof. Maybe branches scraping against it. But then I heard it again. This time clearer. The step. Then another. Footsteps. I stayed completely still, listening carefully, because it didn't sound random. It sounded like someone walking, slowly, from one side of the cabin to the other. That's when I noticed something that made my stomach tighten. The cabin didn't have a second floor. I told myself it was just the wood settling. Old cabins make noise. Temperature changes, pressure, all that. I tried to lie back down. Then it happened again. This time it was heavier, more deliberate. Right above me. I sat there for a while, not moving, just listening. At first, I thought it was nothing, but then it kept happening, every few minutes. And then something changed. The sound wasn't just walking anymore. It was dragging, like something being pulled slowly across the ceiling. A long, slow scrape. Then silence. Then another one. I got out of bed, didn't turn on the lights, just stood there in the dark, listening. Then I heard tapping. So irregular. Above the hallway this time. That's when I realized something. The sounds were moving. From the bedroom, to the hallway, back toward the living room. Like someone was pacing. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. Walked slowly into the hallway, pointing the light at the ceiling. That's when I saw it. A small square outline, barely visible, blending into the ceiling. A hatch. I hadn't noticed it before. Not when I checked the place earlier. I stepped closer, the light shaking slightly in my hand. And that's when I saw something that made my chest tighten. The hatch wasn't fully closed. It was slightly open, just enough to leave a thin, dark gap. I stood there for a few seconds, just staring at it, listening. No sound now. Complete silence. That's when something strange happened. For a second, I thought I heard breathing. I told myself I was imagining it. I had to be, but I couldn't just ignore it. Not after everything. So I reached up slowly, pushed the hatch open. It creaked slightly as it moved, revealing a small dark space above. I lifted the flashlight, shined it inside. At first, I didn't see anything, just wood beams and insulation. Then the light moved slightly to the left, and I saw it. A thin mattress. Next to it, empty food containers, water bottles, clothes, and then something moved. In the corner, a person, curled up, pressed against the wall, watching me. I don't remember thinking. I don't remember reacting. I just slammed the hatch shut and ran out the front door, into my car. Didn't even grab my bag. I drove without stopping. Didn't look back. Didn't slow down. I didn't feel safe until I hit the main road, where there were actual lights, actual cars. That's when I called the police. A few days later, they got back to me. They said someone had been living in that crawl space for a while. But the part that stuck with me was what they said next. They found signs that the person had been there long before I arrived. Meaning, they didn't show up after me. They were already there, watching, listening. The entire time I was inside that cabin, they were right above me. And I still think about something I can't explain. When I first walked in that day, I remember the chair being slightly pulled out, like someone had just gotten up. If you think that's unsettling, the next story gets worse. Because this time, someone didn't just watch from above. We knew something was wrong the moment we got back to the cabin. The fire was already burning. The problem was, we never lit it. This happened last year when my boyfriend and I decided to take a short weekend trip out of the city. Nothing fancy, just somewhere quiet. We found a small cabin near a lake, about 2.5 hours away. The photos looked nice, wooden dock, calm water, trees all around. It felt like the kind of place where you could just disconnect for a couple of days. No noise, no distractions, just the two of us. The drive there was smooth. The last part was a dirt road that stretched along the edge of the forest, with the lake occasionally visible through the trees. No other cabins in sight. No signs. Just one narrow path leading to the property. When we arrived, everything looked exactly like the listing. Small wooden cabin, old but well kept. A short path leading down to the lake. And a dock sitting on still water that looked almost too perfect. At first, everything felt normal. Peaceful. We unpacked our things, picked a bedroom, and spent the afternoon walking around the area. The silence was noticeable. Not uncomfortable, just different. No distant traffic. No voices. Just wind and insects. Around late afternoon, we decided to go for a short hike along a trail we found near the edge of the property. We locked the cabin before leaving. I remember that clearly. I even checked the handle twice. We were gone for maybe an hour, maybe a little more. Just walking, talking, taking pictures near the lake. Nothing unusual. But when we came back, something felt off immediately. The front door was slightly open. Not wide. Just enough to notice. We both stopped a few feet away from it. I remember looking at him, and he looked back at me the same way. Like we were both thinking the same thing. Did we forget to lock it? But I knew we didn't. He walked up first and pushed the door open slowly. We stepped inside together. That's when I saw it. The fireplace. There was a fire burning inside. Not big, not out of control, but steady, like it had been lit not too long ago. We both just stood there for a second, not saying anything, because neither of us had touched the fireplace before we left. At first, I thought maybe the owner had stopped by. But that didn't make sense. No one told us anyone would be coming. And why would they come while we were gone? That's when I noticed something else. One of the chairs had been moved, pulled closer to the fireplace, like someone had been sitting there. My stomach tightened. I looked at our bags. They were still where we left them, but not exactly. One of them was slightly unzipped. I didn't remember doing that. That's weird, I said quietly. He didn't respond. He was looking down at the floor. Mud, he said. I followed his gaze. Near the entrance, there were faint muddy footprints. Not ours. They led from the door, into the cabin, and then disappeared. At first, I thought it was nothing. Maybe the cleaner had come in earlier. Maybe we were overthinking it. But then I noticed something that made my chest tighten. The footprints didn't lead out, only in. We checked the entire cabin. Every room, closets, bathroom. Nothing. No one was there. We tried to convince ourselves it was nothing. Just a misunderstanding. Maybe the owner had come by earlier and forgot to mention it. So we stayed. That night, things got worse. It started with a sound outside. Slow footsteps. Not running. Not rushing. Just walking. Circling the cabin. We both heard it. At first, we didn't say anything. Just listened. That was right outside the walls. He grabbed a flashlight and went to the window. Pulled the curtain back slightly. Nothing. Just darkness. The footsteps stopped. For a moment, it felt like maybe we imagined it. Then it started again. This time on the other side of the cabin. Like someone was walking around it. Watching. That's when he said he was going to check outside. I didn't want him to. But he insisted. He opened the door slowly and stepped out with the flashlight. I stayed inside, listening. A few seconds passed. Then a minute. He came back in. There's no one out there, he said. But something about the way he said it felt off. What? I asked. He hesitated, then said, there are footprints. Where? In the dirt, leading into the woods. Out of the woods? I asked. He shook his head. No, just going in. That's when the feeling changed, because that didn't make sense. If someone came from the woods, where were the footprints leading out? We locked the doors, closed the curtains, stayed in the bedroom. Neither of us slept. Around 2 a.m., we heard it again. This time, right at the door. The handle moved, slowly, like someone was testing it, not forcing it, not banging, just turning it, carefully. My heart started pounding. We both stared at the door. Then we heard something else. A voice. So, come, you're in my place. Neither of us moved. The handle stopped. Then silence. Complete silence. We stayed locked in that room until morning. Didn't speak. Didn't move. Eventually, we called for help. By the time anyone arrived, there was no one there. No footprints. No signs. Nothing. Like it never happened. We left that same morning. Packed everything quickly and didn't look back. But before we left, I noticed something. Under the kitchen table. Carved into the wood. Well, faded. Like it had been there for a while. I leaned down to read it, and my stomach dropped. Said, I come back at night. If that story didn't bother you, the next one will. Because this time, there wasn't supposed to be anyone nearby at all. The listing said the nearest cabin was miles away. That was actually the reason I booked it. I wanted somewhere quiet, completely cut off. But around 2 a.m. that first night, I saw a light turn on in the woods, right behind my cabin. I travel alone a lot. Mostly short trips, nothing extreme. I just like being somewhere quiet for a few days, away from everything. That cabin stood out because of one line in the description. Total isolation. No nearby properties. That sounded perfect. The drive out there was longer than I expected. After the highway, it turned into smaller roads, then eventually just one narrow path that cut through the forest. No signs. No other cars. Just trees on both sides. By the time I arrived, it was already getting dark. The cabin was small but clean. Looked newer than I expected. There was a short porch, a single window in the front, and nothing else around it. No lights in the distance. No other buildings. Just forest. I remember standing there for a minute before going inside. Listening. It was quiet. Not peaceful quiet. Just empty. Inside, everything looked normal. I dropped my bag, checked the rooms, made sure the doors and windows locked properly. Same routine I always do. Nothing seemed off. That night, I stayed up later than usual. No internet, no signal, so I just sat on the couch scrolling through old photos and listening to the wind outside. Around 2 a.m., I got up to grab some water. That's when I noticed it. A faint light. Through the window. At first, I thought it was my reflection. But it wasn't. It was outside. Deep in the woods behind the cabin. I stepped closer to the window. Tried to focus. It looked like a small light. Not bright. Not steady. Flickering. At first, I thought maybe it was another cabin. But that didn't make sense. The listing said there weren't any nearby. And then it disappeared. Just gone. I stood there for a few seconds. Waiting. Trying to see if it would come back. Nothing. I almost went back to bed. But then, it came back. Same spot. Same flicker. But something felt different. It looked closer. That's when I felt it. That quiet, uneasy feeling you get when something doesn't line up. I stayed at the window longer than I should have. Watching it. Trying to figure out what it was. After a few minutes, it disappeared again. This time, it didn't come back right away. I went to bed. Tried to ignore it. Told myself it was probably nothing. But I didn't fall asleep. Because I started hearing something outside. Footsteps. Not loud. Not fast. Just slow movement. Somewhere near the cabin. At first, I thought it might be an animal. But the rhythm felt wrong. Too steady. Too deliberate. Then I heard something brush against the wall. So, like someone dragging their hand along the wood as they walked past. I sat up in bed, listening. The footsteps stopped. Then started again. Closer this time. That's when I got up. I grabbed my flashlight. Walked slowly toward the door. I hesitated for a second. Then opened it. The cold air hit immediately. The forest was completely dark. No light. No movement. Nothing. I stepped outside. Shined the flashlight toward the trees. That's when I saw it again. The light. Deeper in the woods. But not as far as before. And this time, it was moving. Slowly. Like someone walking with it. My chest tightened. Because now it didn't look like a cabin light. It looked like a lantern. I stood there watching it. Not sure what to do. Then it stopped. Just froze in place. And then, it turned off. Everything went dark again. The silence felt heavier this time. That's when I heard it. Footsteps. Behind me. Close. Much closer than before. I turned around. And there was someone standing there. A few feet away. Holding a lantern. Just looking at me. No expression. No movement. Just standing there. I didn't say anything. Didn't ask anything. Because something about it felt wrong. Not aggressive. Not threatening. Just wrong. Then the lantern flickered. And went out. For a split second, everything went completely black. And when I raised my flashlight again, no one was there. Nothing. Just empty space where they had been standing. I went back inside immediately. Locked the door. Didn't turn off the lights. I stayed awake until sunrise. Didn't hear anything else. Didn't see anything else. But I didn't feel alone. Not once. In the morning, I checked outside. No footprints. No marks. Nothing. Just dirt. And trees. I packed my things and left early. Didn't stay the second night. A few days later, I went back to check the listing. Just out of curiosity, that's when I noticed something I hadn't seen before. A review, buried near the bottom, said, "Be careful at night. Someone walks between the cabins." I stared at it for a while, because the listing still said the same thing. No nearby cabins. And that's the part one still don't understand. If there were no other cabins, then who was walking between them? If you made it this far, you already know these aren't the kind of stories you forget easily. So if you enjoy this kind of real, unsettling horror, make sure you like the video, subscribe to Midnight Scary Stories, and stick around, because there's a lot more coming. And trust me, the next one might be worse.